Hey guys, and welcome to this video. And this week we're going to be talking about economy picking. What is economy picking and when should we actually use economy picking? This is like a big subject amongst guitar players. Whatever stage you're at, beginner, intermediate, advanced, is something that's really worth unpacking. And as part of our new kind of weekly challenges where we're going to be setting you a proper challenge that you can go away with this week and work on. But not only yourself, I'm going to also set this challenge to the guys in the office here, and we're going to really unpack why and when should you be doing economy picking. So follow us along in this video. We're going to start by looking at a definition of economy. Economy: careful management of available resources. So that's the dictionary's definition of economy. But what does that really mean for us guitar players? And my interpretation of that is it means to move as effortlessly as possible with your pick. Okay, so remember guys, we're talking about the right hand here, or if you're a left-handed guitarist, your left hand, but the picking hand. What are we doing there? And if we want to match up closely with that definition, we're thinking moving as effortlessly as possible, which raises another question for me anyway, which is, why wouldn't we always want to do that?
Well, to answer the question, I think it would be good to do a few demonstrations because really the main thing that jumped out at me as to why you wouldn't want to always play as effortlessly as possible is feel. What are you trying to achieve? What's the groove that you're trying to do? Now, I'm coming from a traditional background. I'm a blues rock guitar player. Maybe I'm a dying breed, who knows? But that's my style. So I'm listening to guys like Angus Young, Eric Clapton, Chuck Berry, great players where it's all about the feel, the attack, the groove. Everything about it needs to be, I can remove the entire backing track and still hear that tempo. I can still hear that groove all the way through the lead that I'm playing. So here's a couple of examples just to demonstrate that point. So as you can see with all those examples, my right hand is really strictly doing alternate picking, okay? It's because I'm really trying to focus in on the groove. The groove is the most important thing. That's the gospel, okay? The notes are second to that, even though they're obviously very important. And you can build up a lot of speed just with that alternate picking, especially when you're dealing with pentatonic stuff.
Okay, so we've established that it can be done with down-up strokes, especially with those blues rock kind of players. But as the guitar playing got more technical, as it got more challenging and crucially faster, you have to start looking at that technique, okay? So you have to start looking at how can I do this at this speed without breaking my wrist?
Okay, so perhaps we can say that it's speed that is the difference. Speed is the reason why we might start to look to economy picking instead of alternate picking. But even then there's a divide, okay? And this brings me to my theory, okay? When you're starting to play fast or you really want to push your speed, you start to look at the different types of picking, okay? And it comes down to whether you're doing even note groupings or odd note groupings. And let me just explain that a little bit, okay? Even note groupings is very much rooted in the pentatonic, that 2 note per string concept. Okay, and exercises. Something like that. You'll excuse that awesome guitar tone that I'm currently rocking. But that is 2 note per string, or certainly grouped evenly. So it might be 2 notes where it loops, or 4 notes where it loops, or 6 notes where it loops. Either way, it doesn't matter because with my right hand, I know I can consistently do that down-up motion going through the strings and it will group neatly for me. When, however, we start to look into groupings of 1 or 3 specifically, that's where we might choose to bring in economy picking, because at that point, we're starting to be an odd number of groupings. So that kind of strict down-up might not make as much sense. Now, that's not to say that you can't do it. And this is the point that we're really going to start to bring out here. You can, but when you're really trying to develop that speed, that's where you might want to do that most fluid, that most economical version of the picking. Okay, so when a lot of guitarists start to learn 3-note per string scales, for example, that's a grouping of 3 per string, and then you move to the next string. So in that example, you're going to get a picking pattern, something like this, if you did economy picking. Down, up, down, 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 down, up, down. Okay? And that's happening because I'm going on that last down, up, down, rather than going over the top of that A string and coming up to do an upstroke, which will be alternate picking, I'm just going to follow through with another downstroke. And therefore, you get the most economical movement. You know, you barely have to move to get to that next string. So that's an example in 3s, but 1s would be classic kind of sweep picking, right? So if I just took a D shape, that kind of thing, that is very much, again, just, 1 note per string. Every now and again, 2 notes per string when I'm coming back. But other than that, 1 note per string. And the most economical way to do that, certainly the best way to do that, I would argue, is to therefore do down, 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 up, 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 down, down, down. So using that style, okay? So for this kind of grouping of an odd number, it seems to work best to do this economy picking. And for groupings of an even number, it seems to work best to do the alternate picking. Now, of course, there is crossover. And this is what I'm really deeply interested in. So what I've challenged the guys in the office to do, and I'm going to be challenging you to do this as well later, is learn this lick I'm about to play. Now, with this lick, it's got some parts of it, the very first part will be in a grouping of 5, so an odd number, and the rest of it is in a grouping of 4 or 2, so in an even number. And I want to see if the guys, if I just throw them this lick and just let them at it and see if they can try and get up to a certain speed, so a speed that pushes them, how do they do their picking through it? Is it as I've suggested, or is there truly no rhyme or reason to this whole thing? So the lick, just so you guys can hear it, and I'll teach it to you later, is this. And again, a little bit slower. So, let's have a look. Okay, so as you can see, the results are in, and my theory was proved basically wrong. Essentially totally wrong, but it's a really interesting test for us to go through because we gave this same lick to 2 really great guitar players and they both played it ever so slightly differently. So what we'll do now is we're going to go through the lick. So I'm actually going to teach it to you guys now. This is your challenge for the week to try and get this lick together. I'm going to teach it through the way I played it, the way I do it, using my theory. But then I'll also show you how Ollie did it and how Cam did it, and then you can choose what works best for you. So here's the lick again. Really, this time let's do it nice and slowly, shall we? And a little bit slower. Okay. So essentially with this lick, we're essentially in the key of E minor, or you might even say C Lydian, because we start on the C. But I'm thinking my E minor scale, all based around that kind of, that box 1, that kind of classic pentatonic box, and the minor scale. All around there, okay? So we're starting on the 10th fret, and we're going to start on this C note, 10th fret on the D string, sorry. And we're going to go 10, 12, 14. Then we're going to move up to the 11th fret and then the 12th fret. So the first 5 notes are like that. So we'll just look at the left hand first and then we'll bring it to the right hand. So Then we're going to come back down to the D string and start on the 14th fret and do 4 notes up from there. Okay. Then we're going to come back to the 11th fret on the G string and do 4 notes from there. And that's the first half of our lick. Okay. Now at that point, that kind of bleeds into the second part, which starts from that 12th fret again, so that note you've just played, and we're going to go. So we're going to do 12, 12, B string, G string. Then we're going to do 13 and 14. Then 15 and 16. And then finally, the 17th fret, which kind of is that E root note up top. That's why I kind of think it's kind of a great lick for like an E minor thing, but it can fit into all the different modes as well on the major scale. So that second part. So the way I pick through that is like this. So we're going to go down, up, down, down, up. So we got a little bit of economy picking there. So we're going to go down, down, okay, through the strings. Then I'm going to come back to that. When we come back to that D string again, I'm actually going to start personally with a downstroke again. So I'm going to go down, down, then up, down, then continue my kind of alternate picking. And then as soon as I get to this bit, this is all alternate pick, so it's down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Okay? So apart from when I cross those strings, is all alternate picking. When I cross the strings, then I do economy picking. So that's one way of doing it. When it came to Ollie doing this, to get to exactly the same speed, okay, we all got to the same speed at the end, so we all got the same result, just in slightly different ways. So when Ollie did it, it was very, very strict economy picking. So it was down, up, down, down, up, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And then at this point, rather than continuing with the pick, he switched to hybrid picking to get this. Okay? And as he said to us, when he did the hybrid picking, it was all about continuing that economical fashion, barely moving the wrist. You'll notice that looking at Ollie's playing, he barely moves that wrist. He doesn't want to move it very much. He wants to keep it as economical as possible. So that's why he brought in the hybrid picking. So that's another option. When it came to watching Cam do it, he stuck really closely to that alternate picking vibe. So he got the same speed levels up as us, and in some cases more so, but he stuck with that alternate picking. So everything was down, up, 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 down. So he really kind of preferred, as a choice, even though he can do economy picking, as a choice, he chose to do the down, up picking to keep it nice and rhythmical. And he also kind of holds the pick in a very slightly different way, just to get this kind of pendulum effect when he picks. Rather than just a static movement like that, it's very kind of much like this. And this is something that I'm sure in future lessons we'll talk more about in detail. So it's worth just saying quickly here, guys, that if you do want the backing track and the tab, so the backing track that Ollie was playing over at the start of the lesson, and the tab, just to clarify that with the specific down-up pickings of each one of us, then you can go ahead to the website and get that absolutely free. The link will be below in the description.
Okay, so my final thoughts after this epic quest to looking into economy picking is that really the truth is that practice makes perfect. Okay, whatever you practice, if you practice it often enough and you practice it well enough, you're gonna be able to get it up to whatever you want to get out of that. So if it's speed, you're gonna be able to get that. Okay, it just comes down to the practice. However, by knowing about this concept of economy picking, alternate picking, and the differences between the two, you can decide which pathway is going to bode the kind of least resistance for you. So it might be after practicing it for a few hours or a few days or a few weeks, you feel like actually this economy picking thing, working with what Dan said here, this actually feels good to me. And I'm going to now choose to practice this with the licks that I'm learning, because I know I'm going to get there that little bit quicker, okay? Otherwise, you might think after a month's worth of practice, I just hate this vibe. My right hand is not like this at all. I like the alternate thing. I'm going to stick with that. And that's absolutely cool as well. That's no problem. Again, practice that if that's your solution, if that's your conclusion, that's going to work best for you in the long run. It all comes down to the practice that you put in, the consistent practice. So choose the one you prefer and go with that. I really hope that's helped, guys, and I look forward to seeing you in another video.